Cheers, everybody. Television directors don't live in the real world, you know. We were going to do a Christmas programme, so he said, let's go up to Lapland. It'll be fun up there, lots of snow and reindeers and things. Well, there are, and it is. But my God, it's cold.
But at least the chilly weather sharpens the appetite, and I'll be creating some delicious party fare and a magnificent 5-course festive feast to celebrate the new year in style. I've got to admit that this country sums up everything you imagine about Christmas, but my reason for coming here is to throw a festive buffet party for some chums from Lapland. After all, they do live in the same place as Santa, so if anyone should know how to enjoy this time of year, they should.
Well, I've been working since, honestly, about 7:30 this morning to get my party food ready for today, and the first thing I'm making is a sort of a salmon tartare. Now, this is raw salmon, just chopped up with a knife, not in a blender, and marinated in lemon juice. Into that, I'm going to add some chopped red onion, some chopped capers, in vinegar, of course, then some horseradish grated and mixed with cream, a little bit of mayonnaise, then some fresh cream. So we mix that up. Now this, in the kind of Lapland and general Scandinavian tradition, are going to be served on open sandwiches with lettuce and garnish them with lingonberries. So Sean, if you'd like to carry on with those, my dear, thanks very much. Now my next dish are some miniature lamb koftas, minced beef or lamb. Add in again to that some finely chopped onion, some garlic. This is a slightly Middle Eastern dish. Some powdered cumin, some coriander, ground coriander, some fresh coriander, and a couple of beaten eggs. So we then mix it well together and form them into little tiny patties, about the size of that, which we then grill later on and serve with a lovely cucumber and yoghurt relish. Right, there you are, Sean. You're going to like to just make those into little tiny ones like that. Now, I have been reading in the papers recently, there's been a lot of criticism of television cooks who don't wash their hands. But you do have to remember that I've wiped mine off, so they're very, very clean and nice. Now, another good little party dish are sattés, little tiny kebabs. I've used pork and beef alternately. You could use chicken and prawns. You could use anything you like. And I've had them marinating in olive oil and lemon juice. And now I'm going to make the final flavouring of them, which is brown sugar, some cumin, and again some coriander, and some garlic. Now what we're going to do is take some coconut milk and make ourselves a little paste of all of this. And we'll pour that all over the whole lot, all over our little sattés or our little mini kebabs, and let that marinate away in the fridge for an hour or two. As always, it's terribly important to realise that preparation is everything here. Obviously, you're not going to bung these straight under the grill. You get all the cold things done first of all, neatly organised, and then just as you see the whites of their eyes as they come towards you, coming through the front door, that's when you start to actually do the cooking. So, Sean, if you can stick that in the fridge for the next hour or so, that'll be terribly good. Right, earlier, as they say in the best television programmes, I cooked some fresh asparagus and rolled it in bacon, and they too will be grilled as the guests arrive. If they took all the food in the world away and just left one thing, for me it would be cheese. I adore cheese on toast. So I'm going to do some little pieces of toasted cheese for my friends when they come. It's terribly, terribly simple. Loaves of bread sliced up in good pieces, lots of olive oil, and then spread with a mixture of Roquefort cheese, mashed up with olive oil. We'll just make a couple of these so you can see, and then Sean can do all the rest. We're going to do two different kinds. One with ham, Parma ham in this instance, and some Emmental, some tomato, and some Gruyere cheese. and an anchovy. And the other kind we'll do with sun-dried tomatoes as opposed to fresh tomatoes. We'll put some Emmental on top of there. We'll put some more Parma ham on top. This time, on top of the Parmesan, we'll add an egg, Parmesan cheese, and a little piece of black olive. And then you just whack that lot under the grill, let them really melt and go golden and drizzly, and they'll be absolutely delicious. So Sean, just keep those to one side and we'll cook those a little bit later. So stressful, these parties, you know, so stressful. But there are rewards. There's happy, smiling faces, and also there's a bottle or two for you to drink, or me in this case. A small selection of my finger food. Little kuftas, lamb or beef, grilled with cumin and spices, and fresh asparagus wrapped and grilled in bacon. Little open sandwiches of salmon tartare with lingonberries, miniature satays with cumin and brown sugar and spices, and my favourite of all, an effective little crostini of tomatoes, anchovies, Parma ham and cheese. Goes down well at any time. Well, everything is ready. Now all I need is the guests. Skiing may be a great way to arrive, but I wonder if they'll look as elegant when they leave. But you know, all this winter wonderland stuff is all very nice, but there's only one place where I really want to be at this time of year. This is my kitchen. This is my home. This is where I live and where I cook and where I eat. Christmas time, as you know, New Year's Eve time, is a very stressful time of the year. And even more so for me, because my birthday falls between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, as does my daughter's, Poppy. And it's a time of the year when people you haven't invited drop round to your house. And what do you give them to eat? Well, I thought we'd prepare a couple of long-lived snacks that can live in the fridge for 2 or 3 or 4 days and feed people really nicely, really festively during this time. So I've decided to make a classic, proper British pork pie, a real one. Look, in here, I've chopped up loads of bits of pork, belly of pork and leg of pork and stuff like that, put it into some water with a couple of pig's trotters, which will make it jellify when it gets cold, with onions, parsley, bay leaves, sage and carrots for flavouring. Then I've made some hot water crust pastry. Now this is done by melting lard in water and mixing it with the flour while it's still hot. Now this, because it's going to be a traditionally hand-raised pork pie, we won't use rolling pins, and we're going to have a nice thick crust. We're going to flatten that out and lay it in the bottom of our baking tray there. And we'll keep pressing it right the way down and start to build it up around the sides as well. This is what's good fun about cooking, I think, is cooking is not a science, it's not an art, it's a cross between playing with plasticine and doing painting. And I really enjoy it. So we get some more of this out, and once it's been baked in the oven, it can keep in the fridge, easily for a week. Right, so we have that, we're happy about that. Now, we're going to fill it. Now, there's a school of thought that says you might like to mince this, but I don't. I like the big, chunky pieces of meat in it. Right, then we now put a lid on the top of this. Same thing. Press it out by hand. Now, you can be as smart as you like about making this look really pretty. But since I'm not a really smart guy and I don't care too much about prettiness, I'm much more concerned about the flavour. Then I'm going to brush that with beaten egg and milk so the pie crust will glaze nicely. I'm going to make a little hole in the middle because later on, when it's baked, I'll be filling up the pie with this lovely rich pork jelly. So there it is. That's our genuine hand-raised pork pie, and it's going in the oven for probably about an hour. There's absolutely nothing mysterious about cooking. There's no magic, there's no art, there's no science. It's all to do with planning and preparation. I'm making this vegetable terrine, and earlier I fried, in olive oil, some thin slices of aubergine, some red and green peppers, some chopped onion, some courgettes, and some tomatoes. So we'll put some aubergines in the bottom here. I've burnt them a little tiny bit. I've got them slightly caramelized for extra flavor. And then some red and green peppers. And at this stage we'll put in a layer of onion. That goes in there. Then the courgettes, again a little bit caramelized and in very thin slices, because when this eventually goes into the fridge to chill and to set, we need to be able to cut it through like a cake. And some tomato, which I've de-seeded and skinned, by the way. Then a layer of fresh herbs. And I think we'll add a little bit more courgette just to fill the pot up. And then the final thing is this saucepanful of fresh tomato sauce. Now, it's not actually fresh. I bought it from the supermarket in a carton, but it's pure. It's not got any artificial flavourings. It's just straightforward tomato sauce. But into that, I've tipped a couple of tablespoonfuls of aspic, so that when it gets cool in the fridge, this will turn into a wonderful tomato jelly. Yeah. And then we'll pop the lid on, and I'll whack it into the fridge for 2 or 3 hours until it's set, like a jelly. So, there's my pork pie. I've allowed it to cool down for about 3 hours. I've also allowed the stock, which I cooked the meat in, to cool down. It's almost turned to jelly. So at this stage, I fill the pie with what is really the delight of this great, great British dish, the lovely jelly. There we are. That'll soak its way down, and I'll keep it in the fridge for another couple of hours. And then when we cut it open, we can see a wonderful classical pork pie with pickled walnuts, pickled onions, a little salad, and, as a bit of a sting in the tail, a succulent, chilled vegetable terrine.
Join me after the break for the perfect New Year's Eve feast.
New Year's Eve, in the morning, all day to prepare a super feast for our chums and our friends, as opposed to the relatives we had to have on Christmas Day. So we can let our hair down on this one. We can do a bit of gastronomic cookery. But we don't need to make it a stressful time. So start early in the morning, bake a few things, get a few things out of the way, go to the pub, have a few drinks, and then come back later on in the afternoon and cook the main thing throughout the day, which is a nice way to do it. So what I've decided to do, I've baked some little pastry cases, blind as we call it. That's just rolling out the frozen pastry I bought from the supermarket, because they're not that important, these friends of mine. I'm not going to waste my time making pastry. Bake them, stuff them with some dried beans, bake them blind, okay? Then get a selection of cooked shellfish, prawns, crab meat, octopus, whatever you fancy, whatever you like. Then mix, say, 4 egg whites and 4 egg yolks with about half a pint of cream, and whisk it up. Simple as that. Then fill each tart case with the selection of the fish that you like. I've got some prawns, and I've got some cooked octopus, and I've got some shrimps, and I've got some crab meat. Anything you like at all, anything that's easy to get. Fill up the little tart cases like so. Add a little chopped chive and a little bit of dill. Fish and dill seem to be made for each other. Then pour over the egg yolk, egg white and cream. Once they're baked, these can be popped into the fridge to serve with a little crispy salad as the hors d'oeuvre for your New Year's Eve dinner party. And a little bit of luxury, a nice prawn on the top. Then, because these pies have already been baked once, we don't want them to burn. We're going to put some little bits of tin foil over them. Probably blow away with the fan that's going on over my head, but never mind. Just like that. And we'll pop them into the oven only for about 15 minutes. This evening has a Scottish flavour to it. And so I'm going to make a super pudding, which you can do very quickly, very easily, put in the fridge, ready for when your guests arrive. And I like it a lot because it involves something very dear to my heart. Ground up oatmeal cakes. The sort of things we used to have in the army. We used to make porridge with them. It was horrible. But this recipe, using ground up oatmeal cakes, has some special surprises because it uses something which I absolutely love. The old whiskey. And we mix these oatmeals up with a load of whiskey. And we let it soak in. Then we add some superb Highland honey and let that soak in. Now, the lovely thing about New Year's Eve is there's all the lovely expressions they have, don't they? You know, things like, it's time for a change, out with the old. They say. And in with the new. Lovely. Earlier, I bought from the supermarket some red currants, some blackberries, some raspberries, and some blueberries, and I simmered them in a mixture of lemon juice, water, cinnamon, and sugar. I'm going to put some of this into the bottom of a glass. And these are chilled, by the way, very nicely chilled. So that goes into there like that. Then I whisked up a load of double cream, which I'm going to add to my oatmeal mixture now. And mix that together. And then, curiously enough, if you look this up in the Oxford Companion to Food, a very learned book, it'll tell you that it started off as a drink. It wasn't always a pudding. They used to just drink it. You put that into the fridge and allow it to chill right down. And simple, and as easy as it is stunningly delicious and mind-blowingly alcoholic.
A wonderful beginning and end to my feast. A delightful little starter, some seafood and cream tartlets, and a mouth-watering medley of fruit, whiskey and cream. A wonderful way to round off any dinner party. And only 3 more courses to go.
Another excellent excuse for having whiskey on New Year's Eve is the indomitable, the incredible, and the fantastic haggis. This is a sheep's stomach stuffed with lamb and beef and herbs and onions, and it's already been cooked. So when you come to serve your haggis on New Year's Eve, all you have to do is put a little bit of stock around it, cover it in tin foil, and pop it in the oven. Now this one, which is a really heavy one, must be about 5 or 6 pounds, will take about 25 minutes to the pound to cook through. If you wanted to cheat, you could microwave it, wouldn't be quite as good. Or alternatively, you could put it into a bowl of boiling water and let it simmer in the water. I prefer to cover it in tin foil and whack it in the oven. And it gives the opportunity to have that wonderful, wonderful winter vegetable, mashed swede, just boiled in salted water, strained, pureed with lots of butter, lots of pepper, and a good old dollop of cream. And of course, you get to eat it with the old whiskey. It's great. Because this is a very special evening, and I have got my friends here, in my own home, in my own kitchen, I want to do a really super 5-course dinner. So I thought we'd reintroduce the savoury. And so what I've done, I've cut some little discs of white bread out, drenched them in olive oil, spread some Roquefort cheese over them, then put some little bits of tomato, then some buffalo cheese, then some anchovy, and all I'm going to do is, at the time, later on this evening, pop those into the oven, and they'll be like little delicious mini pizzas, a wonderful savoury. And then we can get on with the port and the brandy.
A delicious haggis, simply served with a rich gravy and creamy mashed swede. And this combination of cheeses, tomato and anchovies make the perfect savoury.
Oh, it's been a busy old day, you know, but I'm ready. The guests are here. All I've got to do now is finish off my main course. I've roasted a few birds. Terribly simply, some partridge, 2 poussin, and 6 little quail, just roasted in butter, a little bit of salt and pepper, no problem, very easy, because the whole thing is meant to be easy, it's meant to be fun. But the good bit is, and the more complicated bit, is my special sauce. In the pot here, I've got very, very finely chopped carrots, onion and garlic, fried in olive oil. Then I'm going to add a load of chopped mushrooms. Now you could, if you were extravagant, use wild mushrooms. These are just ordinary champignons de Paris, as they're known. Let them fry away in a bit of butter. Now while they're sweating down, what I'm going to do here on my birds, turn up the old fire, because these little juices are the lovely roasting juices from the birds. But to get extra juices, we're going to set fire to them with a little bit of brandy, and that'll get even more flavour out of them. There we are. Gives us extra juice. In the meantime, some wine into our mushrooms. And we'll let that bubble away. Then, if you remember, I carefully explained, I'm sure you did watch the programme about preparing for Christmas, I made a wonderful giblet gravy to go with the turkey. But I saved half of it for New Year's Eve. I've had this in the deep freeze since I made it just before Christmas. And that saves you precious time. It's already there. So there we are. We let that bubble away. Absolute perfection. This is a stress-free dinner party. Simply roasting some quail, some partridge and baby chickens, making a rich red wine and mushroom sauce. Simply splendid. But there's a sting in the tail of this little happy cooking sequence. I live rather differently. Whoa. Cold winter's night. It's fun, isn't it? A little chicken forestier, I think we call that.
English habits die hard, so even in southern Spain where I live, we maintain the tradition, albeit by the pool.
Happy New Year.
A new series starts next over on Sky Travel as the cameras go behind the scenes at Peyton Zoo in Zoo Story. Here on Extra, meanwhile, we're getting ready for an inclusive deal or two with Sky Travel Shop.